All right, everyone, welcome to the very second OpenTofu office hours. As usual here, we're welcoming anybody in the community to join and participate and ask whatever questions. The agenda for these are simple. We'll just go over some weekly updates. We'll share a little bit more about how folks can contribute, and then after that, we'll open it for Q&A. So with that said, these are all recorded. We'll be posting them to YouTube after a little bit of editing, and they can be caught later on. And the last thing is, in order to accommodate people in Asia, people in the US, people in North America, South America, all over the world, we have the office hours at a slightly different time each 2 weeks. And so the best way to catch that is to subscribe to the calendar link. So with that, we will do the weekly updates. I think we have 2 updates to cover, and Kuba will be doing that. Go for it.
Sure. Let me start screen sharing. I hope this time I don't have to restart Zoom. Yes, I do not. Awesome. So regarding the weekly update, I'll go quickly over the last week's update and this week's update. So this will cover the last 2 weeks. The main topic right now that's been happening over the last 2 weeks and will be happening for the next half a week is the registry replacement. There was a list of requirements posted exactly 2 weeks ago, and last week and this week there was time to work on RFCs, to work on POCs, to discuss those RFCs, requests for comments, to discuss those designs, those possible designs for a stable registry. Just to recap, right now we already have a provider and module registry, but this is an alpha registry. The design was mostly done to just get something out the door quickly so people can use OpenTofu and test it, but it's not a stable registry. We don't recommend using it in production, definitely not. And the stable registry will actually be production ready and will kind of is the main blocker to actually getting a stable release of OpenTofu out so people can start using OpenTofu easily in production. Right now, they'd probably need to use a private registry to really be sure that it's safe to use. Other than that, we have a new setup OpenTofu action contributed by the Dimitri, who's actually on this call. Thank you, Dimitri. And this basically lets you easily configure OpenTofu in your GitHub Actions, so you can easily port your GitHub Actions to OpenTofu, play with OpenTofu in your GitHub Actions, etc. We've been working on various TF 1.6 compatibility issues. The biggest one really is the S3 state backend. The S3 state backend basically has some changes. They are made so that the S3 backend is more in line with how the AWS provider has been configured in the recent versions. So this way, basically, both the AWS provider and S3 backend have the same parameters available to configure them. Now, this is right now still backwards compatible. You can still pass the old arguments, and there's like a deprecation cadence where over 2 versions, most likely the old arguments will probably be removed. So there is time to port your configurations over that while. Now, going more to last week and actually also previous week, one important update is that OpenTofu has been added to Homebrew Core. This is really nice because Homebrew Core maintainers decided that Terraform, since it's now more open source, the new versions will not be on Homebrew. Because the Homebrew core repository is only for open source software. There's still the casks, there's still the tabs, which is probably where Terraform could live on further. But in the Homebrew core repository, Terraform 1.6 is not available. Only 1.5.x versions are available and will most likely be deprecated. OpenTofu is already available there, so you can just play with OpenTofu by running brew install OpenTofu. And there was also an interesting bug report yesterday regarding migrating from Terraform configurations to using Tofu, from Terraform to Tofu with existing state files. This included some interesting errors because depending on the order in which you use select workspaces, set up state files and run Terraform or Tofu in it. Different providers will be downloaded, and maybe you might be missing some providers. But this actually uncovered an interesting thing where, since the state file still has stored that it's actually using registry Terraform IO providers, and your code, the short, for example, HashiCorp AWS is now interpreted as the OpenTofu registry, Tofu would actually download both. So it would download two copies of the AWS provider, one from the HashiCorp registry for the because the state file references it, and one from our registry because the code references it. Now there is a fix. There's already a fix implemented here that still needs some polish that will actually change this so that only providers from the OpenTofu registry will be downloaded, and you'll have to be very explicit if you want to actually download providers from the HashiCorp registry, which might be breaking their terms of service, which is why we don't want to do that by default. And up next week, the technical steering committee will meet and choose an RFC for the registry stable design, and this is then what we will start implementing and what will become the stable release of the registry, with an ETA between the middle of November and the middle of December, putting us at a timeline of having a stable release of OpenTofu around the beginning and mid of December. And that's really the last two weekly updates. Just to clarify, what I'm reading here is a file weekly updates. It's available in the announcements channel of the Slack. It's posted to most of our social media, and you can find it in the OpenTofu repository. In the root of the repository, there's a file called weekly updates, and new weekly updates are always posted to the top of this file. Any questions?
And posted as well to the chat.
Awesome.
Kuba, would you mind just talking a little bit, for those who haven't been keeping up to date, about why we are putting forward registry RFCs, what our current state is, and what we're planning for?
So just to recap, right now we have an alpha registry that is not stable for production use. We can't use the HashiCorp registry, first because we want to decouple ourselves from them, but also because they changed the terms of service. So you can only use the registry of HashiCorp Terraform. So those are reasons why we have to build our own registry. And now we are working on a stable design. If you look at the issue tracker, there are currently two main issues. This is mostly a background discussion. So there are two approaches currently proposed. One is a little bit more AWS leaning. The other is more GitHub leaning, with a design that's more like Homebrew. In practice, both are fairly similar in that they are trying to be very simple to maintain. They rely on hosting a lot of the information that the registry uses in GitHub, so people can add providers, manage providers, add keys by creating pull requests on GitHub instead of having to log into some UI, and actually also hosting the registry as static files in a way that will be very highly available, so you can be sure that the registry will generally have a very good uptime and will scale to whatever usage we need to with OpenTofu users. I hope that makes sense. If you want to check out if you want to check out the RFCs, you can click in the link in the weekly updates, and that already has a relevant search phrase for the issues. Okay.
Thank you. And let's see here. James, do you want to talk about a little bit, remind everyone how the best ways to contribute, and
can I ask a question before going forward about RFCs?
Sure.
So how I saw the RFCs was, so James Pro has this RFC for componentized strategy, and as far as I understand, as you are mentioning, there are two RFCs. Then that would mean both of those RFCs abides the componentized strategy, right? So this is not a separate RFC.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, so basically the componentized strategy for OpenTofu registry by James is more of a general discussion in a sense and background reading, because it describes in a very general way an approach to designing the registry, with a lot of discussions of various choices that could be made in a sense. And actually both of these RFCs are very much in line with this. So really, this RFC is basically the same as the other one, but actually chooses specific components for each of the places where there's a discussion of what to choose. And really, the Homebrew-like registry design is also similar. In a sense, those designs differ mostly in that the AWS-based design uses an actual database hosted on AWS with some service that does periodic refreshing, stuff like that, while the Homebrew-like registry design stores everything in GitHub, including lists of versions, and has a periodic GitHub action which fetches new versions. Yeah, basically. That's the main difference between those two RFCs. And they are both really, other than that, similar in design, and both tie in very much into the componentized strategy for OpenTofu registry.
Great
All right.
question.
I'll make a note to go and update the componentized strategy to mention that it's very generic, and the AWS RFC is like a concrete implementation almost of my generic approach.
Perfect. Thank you.
All right, James, do you want to talk a little bit about how about the best ways to help the project, to contribute, to participate?
Sure. So this is something that I think a lot of people may have already seen a few times. I'm not going to share my screen because it's just me going over the same points that are everywhere. We've got this in our contributing guide in our repository. I think we've got this on our website. We put this every week in our weekly updates. Right now we have our alpha release out. We have alpha 3 that is out. You can go and download this through Homebrew. Test this today, migrate some of your existing Terraform stacks over to 1.6, and feel free to raise as many bugs as you want. There is no such thing as too many silly bugs. If you are hitting bugs that exist in both Terraform and OpenTofu, please feel free to open them as well on OpenTofu. We are happy to go and fix them. We are usually fixing them a little bit faster than what is going on in other places. We would love it if people could go and read the RFCs. I'm aware that my RFC, Andrea, is extremely long. If you get bored reading this, please ignore it. Carry on, go and read the AWS and the other RFC. They are great implementations, and having some discussions around those will be very helpful for us making some decisions moving forward. I believe that's it. We've got a core team. We're always on Slack as well. So if anyone have any questions, we are all keeping unhealthy work hours right now. So please feel free to reach out to us. We're all friendly people, and we really love working with the community. So yeah.
Awesome. And then for the very last part, let's do some Q&A. I don't know if the people have questions. There's already been a few questions, but maybe there's a few other questions. If not, I don't know if folks have seen that, but the AWS service catalog now has deprecated support for legacy Terraform. And so I think like VMware's done the same thing, GitLab's done the same thing. So it's kind of, we're seeing legacy Terraform being deprecated in lots of places. Hopefully we'll see that being replaced with OpenTofu soon. Angel, go ahead.
How's it going? Can you hear me?
Yeah.
I mean, I don't have any questions. You've done a pretty good job on the website. Everything is pretty clear, so I just wanted to introduce myself. I'm a new kid in town now. I'm pretty excited. I actually used Terraform a lot before. Then I got disappointed like everyone here. And then of course I found out that this is started, so I'm pretty excited to start talking here any way I can. I also have a community in America, and there's a lot of big excited folks about these projects. So when I see how can I bring this topic all the way there to see how we can bring more people and help. So.
Awesome. Welcome to the community. How far have you gotten with the, were the docs sufficient? Is there any feedback that you care to share on what we could do better and make it easier for folks to try things out?
Actually, I think that probably the way that I could start helping is maybe some, like if there's something that helps, right? Translation, because Spanish is the predominant language in Latin America, and there's, like I said, there's a lot of people there that probably can help on the project, but translate the documentation by hand, and I can help on that side. So the documentation was pretty straightforward. And as soon as I read the manifest, I was clear the objective. So even inspired me to build my own manifesto for the project that we open sources. So
Okay. Awesome. Yeah, I do think that like there's at some point where we probably will reach out to the community, try to get stuff translated, especially in maybe like Japanese, Mandarin, or Chinese, and obviously Spanish and like some of the very widely spoken and read languages. So that's good feedback. Yep. Any other Q&A? Going once, going twice? If not, well, I'll edit this, post it to YouTube pretty shortly after having had a little bit of PTO, and then we'll be back on in 2 weeks. All right, everyone.
Thanks,
Take care.
everybody. Cheers.
Thank
Cheers.
you. Bye.